definitely afternoon. Good afternoon. So I have been going back and forth about making a video about this particular topic because it is very touchy. I'm a little leery about how the feathers that is going to ruffle. Not so much how it's going to make me look, because I mean, it is what it is. People can feel differently if they choose after watching this. If they watch it, I really don't care. But it is a very personal topic. So let's get to it. I didn't get an official diagnosis until I was 25. I was diagnosed with bipolar and adult ADD. I was diagnosed with ADD as a child, and I didn't learn that until years later, and no one really talked about it. Wasn't really educated about it, didn't know anything about it. But as an adult, I understood much more clearly why I did some of the things that I did, or why my attention span was so terrible and still is today. Different things like that. But anyway, recently in having sessions with a doctor, it has been addressed that I possibly showed signs of having bipolar as early as my preteens. And she said that because I displayed when I was younger, I used to self-please a lot. And I was 12, 13 years old. I had absolutely no interest in having sex whatsoever. I didn't have interest in boys or anything like that. I think I had a little crush on someone back during that time, but that was it. It was a crush. But I almost obsessively self-pleased. And it went on for years, and I never understood why it was compulsive. I never understood it until here I am over 10 years later, sitting in a doctor's office explaining this behavior, and she tells me, that might have been a sign. And then into my later teens, 17, 18 years old, I became very promiscuous. I had multiple partners, and it was so bad that I had rules where I wouldn't involve myself with that person for more than 3 times before I cut them off. You know, they were never allowed to come to my house. They were not allowed to know where I lived. You know, we didn't go out on dates, things like that. I was very cutthroat about it. And at the time, I thought it was just me being me. I didn't think anything was wrong with my behavior. I didn't talk to anyone about it, and no one knew that I was this way. My parents would have never guessed that this was the type of behavior that I was engaging in. You talk to my mom now, and she'll be like, "What? Shanika? She did this? What?" Yeah, that was me. Not something that I am proud of course, especially since we live in a world where women are shamed for behaving as such. You know, teenage boys, no one's really going to care too much about the teenage boys going through women like toilet tissue. When a girl does it, especially as a teen, it's kind of a bad thing. And it wasn't until I reached my late 20s where that behavior was brought to my attention as something that could have been indicative of something deeper going on. Now, when I became an adult, I always thought that it might have been aftermath of some PTSD, you know, for different things that have occurred in my past sexually, the different things that I was exposed to. I thought that might have been why I behaved that way, and it's very possible that still is a factor, or was a factor. But what I didn't think about was the fact that it could have been a indication that there was a mental illness present, because once again, no one really talked about that type of stuff. But one of the signs in teenage boys and girls of having bipolar specifically is an increased sexual appetite, whether it be self-pleasure, whether it's partners, one partner and you just like to have sex a lot, multiple partners, unsafe sex. It's not normal for teenagers to behave in that way. Most teens are doing it now. It is what it is. We don't like it, especially as parents of teenage kids. We don't want to hear that. We don't like it, but it's the truth. They're doing it. And a lot of them are probably not practicing safe sex. But for them to have multiple partners, for them to be obsessed about the fact that they are having sex, that is not normal. It's not characteristic of a healthy teen. And that was my case. And because my parents were not aware of what was going on and we weren't having those talks, and I was pretty good at hiding the things that I did, here I am 10 plus years later just discovering that something deeper was occurring. And I'm sharing this story because that's happening to a lot of other teens out there. There's a lot of teens who are going through the exact same thing that I was, and no one's talking about it. And meanwhile, they are subjecting themselves to diseases, to unplanned pregnancies, and I'm not that person that thinks that an unplanned pregnancy is the end of somebody's world, because it's not. Is it something that we want to happen? Absolutely not. I don't want my kids to grow up and be 16 and 17 and be parents, but it's not the end of the world. What could be dangerous is catching something you cannot get rid of. That is my biggest fear. And because we have these teens who are out here and they're having sex and it's unprotected and it's with multiple partners and they are turning to physical pleasure to fill other voids that are not being addressed, that is an issue. And that is why I'm sharing my story, a very personal one, and one that doesn't make me look that great. But that's why, because I feel like if I can put myself on Front Street, then maybe it'll reach somebody who's going through the same thing that I went through 10 plus years ago. And I escaped that period of my life unharmed. That doesn't necessarily end that way for other people, and we need to stop that. So the message in this end of the story is, look for that. If you have a sexually promiscuous teen, and some of them are out there, some of them are very open about the fact that they are doing these things. Maybe there's something deeper going on. Have they had some sexual trauma? Are they suffering from bipolar or depression? Do they have self-esteem issues? Is there an image thing going on? There is usually something deeper going on when you have a teenager who is just extremely active like that, when they're obsessive. There is nothing normal about a 12-year-old who masturbates on a regular basis. Nothing at all. But because no one knew that about me, no one saw it, and no one was able to catch it before it could have become catastrophic. I just want someone else to pay attention and open their eyes. That's my story for the day. I will talk to you guys later. Tune in. I will continue to be posting videos about my personal experiences and things that just so happen to fall on my mind. So tune in. I will be back very soon.